port injection install video. I've undone one of the hose clamps here. I've undone the MAP sensor harness. I've undone the quick disconnect clip here and pried this out. Charge pipe off the throttle body. I've undone, there's a vac hose here that goes into the throttle body. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. That needs to come off. Now, because we're using custom fuel line, I'm going to undo my fuel line here and then put the T in so we can T into the port injection rail. Next up is pretty much to remove the intake manifold, DME, wiring harnesses for the DME, pull that out, and then we'll put the port injection plate on, and then it's pretty much put back together. It's a pretty straightforward installation, to be honest. Alrighty, so once we've undone hose clamp, we've undone that, we've taken off that back line, we take the DME off. Once we take the DME off, we're going to take off the 5 bolts. There's 5 bolts on the intake manifold. We're going to take off all of them, and then from there we'll take the intake manifold off and put the port injection plate on. Now we're going to need to take off the vac solenoid just here. That just slides off, pries off rubber with some rubber grommets, and we just undo the wiring harness before we take the manifold off. Usually in most cases under here there is a bit of a wiring harness that's stuck to the manifold that we're going to need to remove. It normally just clips off. It's a bit of a pain to get to, but you get your hand under there, you can pull it off the manifold. Here you go. Here you go, we've got it off. You can see the ported head we've got on here now. Pretty opened up, it's pretty good, pretty impressive. Alright, so now we need to take off these studs. They need to come off because we've got longer versions to put on. So we take them off and put the long ones on and put the PI plate on. So you use an E7 torque socket on top of those studs to undo them, and then we'll put the new ones in. So you want to do it up just so it bottoms out. You don't want to go tight. There's no need to really torque these. Alright, so just do it up once it starts to bottom out. That's it, we'll switch over and we'll put the manifold and etc. on. So on these fuel hose lines, you've got these fuel hose lines, you've got these fuel fittings, right? This is the cap for that. You want to feed the cap on the line first, and then you want to feed that little silver expander piece on after. So I'll show you how that's done. So you can see, just put that on the hose, and then for this bit you want it to go between the you want this to go between the braided line and the actual PTFE fuel line. You want to sit it between the two, and you want it to sort of bottom out in there. So you can see the PTFE lines in the center, and you can see it sort of bottoms out with that aluminium seat. Then you simply push these two together, and then once that's bottomed out there, we'll tighten this up in the fitting. Now, the BMP plate does actually come with its own fuel line, but because of the way that we've got the fuel line set up in this car, I need to do a custom line, which is why I'm doing a custom line rather than using the line that they provide. I ended up changing out the fitting I had on here, a straight one with a 90 degree, just because it was hitting the firewall. So now we're on a 90 degree fitting. Just going to plug the injector harnesses in, put the manifold back on, and then it's up to the fiddly little bits. Alright, so I've plugged the Motiv Reflex Plus. We've plugged cylinders 1 to 4 in. I'm going to electrical tape up these 2 end connections for cylinders 5 and 6, as we're not going to use them and I don't want them to get water damaged or moisture damage. Alright, I've gone ahead and I've fed the intake manifold back on. I just need to route this fuel hose in a bit better location so it doesn't sit near the positive wire, but that's fine, I can route that in a sec. You can see it goes on. You can see the bolt holes, threads and everything there. Just uses the factory 11mm nut back on those studs. Alright, they're all back in, all torqued to factory spec. Now it's just a matter of putting all this back together, the fuel system, wiring the reflex up, DME back on. Alright, so I've run the hose here, around, under there. Just need to tidy this up a little bit more. Run the hose here, around, and the sensors here. Yeah, so as you can see, I've run the fuel hose. Go from a high pressure fuel pump here, run around, flex sensor here, a T section here. I want the flex sensor to not be in the T. I want it to be in the general flow of the fuel. As we're only going to use it on ethanol. You know, I still need to tidy this up a bit obviously, but for now this is sort of where it's going to run. Alright, now it's going to put the DME back on, and that's just wiring. It's worth noting the coupler is not really, it could be longer, because it moves, obviously the port injection plate moves all of the charge pipe out. So I've got enough for now, but I'm sort of curious as to whether or not I'm going to get a boost leak and the clamp's going to come off, because under the clamp there's not enough coupler. So, and it's a shame that the kit doesn't come with a longer coupler. So that may need to be replaced with a slightly longer coupler to give a bit more movement, a bit more flex. Alright, until I can get some stuff to properly tuck this away somewhere else, just for the dyno tomorrow, we're just going to do this. I've tapped it into the wiring for now, based off the N55 guide, although to be fair, I couldn't one-to-one the N55 guide because the DME pinouts are incorrect. The wire colors are all the same, so for most of the cases I just tapped straight into the actual sensor wire directly, but when I needed the pinout on this, I needed to look up on TIS, new TIS, the actual wiring pinout to correctly tap into the correct feeds. So a bit of a mess for now, but it's functional. I just need to get on the dyno and then we'll look at actually properly routing this somewhere under the dash.
We've made a good curve. Power's not high, but dynos are a tool for measuring performance, not so much the power number itself. But the curve itself is fucking great. That's a good one. All right. I'm going to, it's going to review that, but that's a really lovely curve. When we move torque a bit later in the RPM because of the flowing of this head, and we have lost a bit of velocity, so we've lost a bit of torque, but this thing is holding power for like nearly 3,000 RPM. It's insane, like it's almost a flat curve. Now I haven't put any additional timing in, I've just sort of tried to taper boost and fix the boost up a bit, but I mean that curve alone, that's fucking great. It's a great curve, that's a really good curve. But it explains why the car feels like it's just pulling from 4 all the way to 7,000 RPM. Alright, so I'm just going to review the log. See if I can get the camera to focus on the laptop a bit here. Should be able to get both of them in view. Alright, so I'm just going to look at the log. Alright, there's a bit of throttle closure in here, it needs to be fixed. It's an easy fix, and just pull a bit of duty out of that. Alright, so I've just made some adjustments, bit of fueling, bit of ignition, bit of wastegate. I'll flash the changes now and we'll see how we go. So I'm flashing via the phone or the laptop, and I'm reviewing via the laptop. It's just easier for me. Yeah, we'll see how we go. 260 kilowatts with PI and nearly 500 newton meters of torque. That's fucking crazy. Alrighty, so reflex, we're doing some tuning on the reflex, we're doing some tuning on boot mode. Pretty good number. Alright, we've managed to crack 500 newton meters. Fuck yes. Thank you everyone for making it this far into the video. Unfortunately, that is as much content that I really gathered on that N20 ordeal, and the reason why there was no further content really, and I think I explained this in my video back in January, but unfortunately that motor ended up having another issue. We went through many issues with that motor, and it's not particularly because of the Darton sleeve solution or anything like that. It's just unfortunately because that was the guinea pig motor. It went through a lot of trial and errors, and unfortunately it also meant that it went through many reassemblies, torquing, removal of bolts, retorquing of bolts, etc. And unfortunately the ARP main studs actually pulled themselves out of the block. This is not something that I think is a problem with the N20 not being able to handle 500 newton meters of torque. I mean, we've got stock ones making that figure, and the rods are typically what break, right? It's just clear to me that because the crank was removed so many times, we've torqued and untorqued. It's gone through many heat cycles. It's gone through a few catastrophic failures. It was probably just bound to happen. I think that block itself was just problematic. Unfortunately, it got to the point where I just had enough, and that was the nail in the coffin. So I'm actually going to turn that motor into a coffee table, so I have a consistent reminder of the pain that I went through, I suppose, trying to develop an engine platform from start to finish. Look, we had a lot of good examples out there in the wild, whether I've tuned them, whether I provided parts for them, or otherwise. But I think, now, especially with how cheap B48s are becoming, how reliable those motors are from factory, I think the N20's time is done and dusted now. It's just, unfortunately, a motor that, if you looked after it, it could do pretty well. But it just has a lot of shortfalls. The timing chain's a big one. The offset crank is another problem. Just purely because you've got to notch the cylinders. It's just, there's so much work that needs to be done to that motor to bring it up to spec. Obviously, open deck design, the head studs, there's 11mm and 10mm mix and matchings going on there. Look, the cranks are good, the bearings are good. It's really just pistons and rods, offset crank design, and some of the block design elements that just really let that motor down. So look, yeah, I know the figures on the screen weren't really amazing, and that's purely just because that turbo, we went the wrong route with the turbo from the beginning. That turbo just clearly can't deliver what we needed it to. I don't know if I had mentioned it, but on those Dyno runs, we'll run at 31, 32 pounder boost, and the turbo just, that's it, it'd peak that boost pressure, and it would just taper. If we reduced boost pressure, for example, it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't make more power. So we had to keep ramping up boost to get our power up. But once we hit that 30, 28 to 30 pound, it would peak at 5.5, and it would fall over. It didn't matter how much duty cycle you'd put in it. It just struggled, and your power wouldn't go up. I mean, the power figures and the power charts, curves, they're all pretty decent. We definitely picked up torque with the ported head. So we made about the same power before. We made 258 to 264 kilowatt, slightly different dyno, slightly different temperature, etc., etc. But we were making nearly 80 newton meters less torque. So we've definitely picked up torque, reducing the valve lift in the mid-range from 9.9 millimeters max down to 5, 6, 7, and we staged it we ramped it up nice and linearly. That helped get us a bit more pressure back in at the low RPM, so we could get that low RPM torque, because we lost a lot of air velocity due to the ported head. So that definitely helped. Obviously, once we got to 4500, which went full lift on the Valvetronic, now that car is sold. So that is it. The N20 saga is completed, and this is the final bit of footage you will see from me on the N20 stuff, unless it's me showing you my coffee table.